everyone. This is Brother Benson, and I'm joined with uh, Mikuda and Makobura. Habari ya jioni wenzangu.
Habari ya jioni, niko vyema mimi nashukuru. Ni wasalimu pia mimi nikiwa upande hii. Ni msalimu na natumai ya kwamba mko salama, buheri wa afya sana, bila kusahau mwenzetu ambaye ako pale kwa comment section, naona good year, naye pia tunamsalimia tukipanga kuzungumza mada ambayo imewekwa hapa leo.
Asante sana Mikuda, habari ya kwako?
Kakangu, niko mzima, hali ni shwari. Tunavumilia tu kama Wakenya na pia watu katika ile harakati ya kuomboleza wale wenzetu waliopoteza maisha yao katika machafuko huko nchini jirani Tanzania.
Thank you so much, Migoda and Makobura, for your opening remarks. And we want to look at least look at the democracy, especially in Africa. And when we're looking democracy in Africa, Kenya included in Tanzania, and we want to weigh our thoughts, especially why election in Africa ending trust in democracy. So there's this thought that the democracy that that we keep on talking about, or the democracy that we are being told, is that when you look at how the elections has been carried, especially people are going to elections in various parts of Africa, there are few notables that are universal across Africans when they are having elections. One of them is the Protestant violence. Two is about crackdowns, especially you might find that the administration in power will tend to have crackdown, especially on the critiqued, or we call it the use of justice system, against your opponent. So that is what we are going to discuss. And also we are looking at the rigged elections, especially with the democracy. So that is some of the things that we want to discuss. And I want to take this opportunity to welcome Laban Misiani for being here. And Goodyear is saying hi to Makobura. We are all good. Goodyear, I saw you say that inabadilika kama there was something that we were working on, and good enough that we are able to fix it, and now we are here. Makobura, when you look at the democracy, especially on your view, maybe what can you say about democracy?
Thank you so much. And I can see a good friend Laban Misiani saying tutam kama tutam imefanyika huko Tanzania, mbona isifanyike huku Kenya? Na anasema ya kwamba vile imefanyika huko itafanyika huko pia. And sometimes it's even difficult to talk about some matters, especially those that are happening in Africa. Yeah, but first, allow me to first give an overview of what democracy is.
Yeah.
Democracy is a system of government where power ultimately lies with the people
True.
who either directly or indirectly
Mm-hmm.
shape laws, policies, leadership through voting and participation.
Yeah.
So it is that is what democracy is all about, and we have what we call key features of democracy,
Mm-hmm.
including what we call the popular sovereignty. We
Mm-hmm.
also have what we call free and fair election,
Yeah.
and we also have what we call rule of law.
Mm-hmm.
We have protection of rights. We have it's called pluralism of
Yeah.
and participation, and of
Mm-hmm.
course we do have what we call the checks and balances. So allow me to just give a little bit definition of popular sovereignty. This is where the people are the ultimate source of authority. Leaders are elected by citizens and government are accountable to them. That
Yeah.
is popular sovereignty. And
Mm-hmm.
then free and fair election. Citizens vote in regular elections that are transparent, competitive, and
Mm-hmm.
inclusive. And then when I talk about rule of law, here everyone, of course, including the leaders, is subject to the law. Legal systems are independent and uphold justice.
Yeah.
When I talk about protection of right, these are the key. I'm giving the key features of democracy in politics.
Yeah.
When I talk about protection of rights, here democracies safeguard the civic liberties like freedom of speech, religion, press, and assembly. And then now, when I talk about pluralism and participation, here we
Yeah.
have political parties, interest groups, now like the interest groups and the civil society organizations compete and, of course, contribute in policy making.
Yeah.
And the last one, of course, checks and balances, where power is divided among the branches of government. We having the executive led by the president, legislative led by the parliament, the speakers and the parliaments, and the
Mm-hmm.
judiciary. And their role, of course, is to prevent the abuse. That is now the checks and balances. And if I get back to the question that you've asked about whether there is democracy in Tanzania,
No,
um,
we are not looking at
no, 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 in
very
Africa,
specific in Tanzania. We are just looking at democracy
in Africa, you did
in
mention.
Africa. Yeah.
I've
Yeah.
just slept kidogo.
Yeah.
I've just slept kidogo. You had asked about, um, Africa. I can categorically tell you that when we now start looking at the key features and then we
Yeah.
start dwelling in it,
Mm-hmm.
uh, there is no what we call popular sovereignty in certain countries because leaders are supposed to be elected by the citizens. But we find several situations in Africa where leaders, some of them are forcing themselves into power, either through coup by coup, either by stealing elections.
Mm-hmm.
And so we lack what we call popular sovereignty. And that is why we are seeing majority of the governments are not accountable to the citizens. The leaders are not accountable.
Mm-hmm.
I can give you quite a number of examples in Africa where we have leaders who got into power and they don't want to leave power. They are not really being elected, but they are forcing themselves into those elective positions, not once, but several times. In Africa, we have leaders who've been in politics, so in leadership for more than 40 years, and they're still in power. That tells you clearly that the popular sovereignty is not there. When we get to free and fair elections, I can guarantee you there is no free and fair election in many countries in Africa.
Mm-hmm.
And if you ask me, I can give you an example of what happened in Tanzania. That was not free and fair election, truth be told.
But now,
Kenya has always had problems with free and fair elections to an extent that not once but several times
mm,
elections. I mean, this cases has been taken to the judiciary,
mhm,
and at one point the judiciary of the Republic of Kenya did nullify and said that the elections were null and void
yeah,
and that it was not free and fair.
yeah,
Not just in Kenya, we have witnessed this in many of the republics within Africa.
true.
When we talk about rule of law, which of course talks about everyone, of course, including leaders, is a subject to the law. Legal systems are independent and uphold justice. We have leaders in Africa who are not subjected to the laws of the land. We have leaders who decide on their own and
Mhm,
make decisions depending on what they want to do, depending on the power that they have. Not once. We've seen political leaders, presidents, even giving instruction that their opponents be taken to court, be tried on cases which are neither here nor there. When we speak about protection of right, and here, uh, democracies, when we speak about protections of right,
yeah,
where democracies are supposed to do what we call safeguarding the civil liberty, of course, things to do with freedom of speech and all those. In the Republic, in Africa, the continent of Africa, so many countries we have situations where people are not having the freedom of speech, and when they do speak, similar to what we are even seeing today, quite a number of people have been, arrested just
mhm,
because they were speaking about the election that was happening in the Republic of Tanzania. And not just that, we have had the we saw what we call shutting down of internet, power and all those kind of things as a
mhm.
way of sabotaging things to do with freedom of speech, religion, of course, press. I can give you good example. People, the people of Kenya were asking why Larry Madowo, who is a CNN respondent, was didn't go to Tanzania, and the answer he did give in his platform, he said that they are not allowed. The constitution of Tanzania do not allow foreign press to cover what is happening in that particular country. And what does that tell you? That then gives the government of that areas to not respect the rights or do not even protect the rights of the people of those particular countries. When we speak about multiple political parties, things to do with multipartism, what we witnessed, I'm just using that as an example. What we witnessed uh, in Tanzania is a pure clarification of the fact that political parties are not respected and they are not even given opportunity to just showcase what they have. They're not given the environment to thrive. When we get to checks and balances, we have situation where the different branches of government, the executive, legislature, and judiciary, are in bed, and they are not really doing the checks and balances as is expected in a democratic environment. So all these, I think, are pure clarification of the fact that we have problems in Africa when it
So
comes to matter of
when you look at
democracy.
when you look at all this, all those that you've said, and if you compare it to democracy, because from if you put it in a nutshell, maybe if to start from there, democracy is where you form the government for the people uh, and by the people. Yeah, so it's a government that has been formed and the people has to play a major role in it, and it should work for the people. It is formed by the people for the people, and it also has to work for the people. But now when you look at the democracy that we are having, especially in Africa, could we say that the democracy that even maybe we are learning in books, or the democracy that the Africans inherited, it is not a true democracy, it's a lie democracy.
Yeah, I think from the definition of democracy, I think we are having our own definition of democracy, or we are doing an implementation which is contrary to what really democracy stands for.
So
Ni vile
which means in a nutshell, in Africa, the democracy that we are talking about is an inherited democracy because um, one of the ways in which the government can be formed for the people, by the people, and work for the people, it should be that the people should be given an opportunity to be part of that government. And how are they being part of that government? One, through voting, that could be one way. Two, through getting the services that they need. Four, also to criticize. But if we say that this is what we can get, especially when you want to elect that government, we have to go through voting process, and you find that those voting process do have challenges that are created by the leaders. Then does it mean that now we are looking at voting in the nutshell when you look compared to Africa, which means like the trust of democracy, especially when it comes to vote, is not working?
we have a challenge in Africa, because yes, we talk of democracy, but I can tell you democracy has not been implemented in many of African countries. And
Mhm.
that is why many times I'm quite sure you've ever heard that Kenya is one of the countries that are doing what we call boasting of being mature in democratically in the eastern part of Africa. And surely we are not yet there. We are not really a democratic country. But if you compare Kenya with the East African countries, you'll find that there are some things that are partly being implemented. Like
Like
if
what? Like what? Because Makobura, uh, uh, I want to cut you short. Sorry, I'm inviting Migoda. If you want to say that Kenya, when it comes to democracy, it has maturity, and as compared to other East African states, but still you find that what we call democracy is whereby the government that should be in place should be formed by the people, for the people, and is for that for the people, right?
yeah, yeah,
And
I'm saying I'm
and
not really saying that.
and
I'm
and,
not
and
really saying
yeah, and that's why now when we say that, then we should not say that we have matured. It's been
okay.
that
Let me give a clarification of what I meant.
yeah,
I was saying that we have a problem with democracy in Africa, and it is not yet, it has not been implemented in Africa.
yeah,
And I was giving you an example that, for example, you've heard many times the people of Kenya or people around Kenya talking about democracy, and they say that Kenya boasts of having somehow, mature in matters of democracy. But what I'm saying is, I'm not saying that they are there. I'm not
yeah.
saying that they are democratic, but I'm just saying that compared to the countries around, they
Mhm.
somehow understand bits of what is needed in democracy. And this is what I'm saying.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
I'm saying, kindly mark my word, I'm not saying we are mature democratic.
Mhm.
I'm just giving an example compared to the countries around. For
Mhm.
example, Kenya today, you can stand up and speak against the president, and there's nothing, or there's nobody who will, somehow threaten you or take you to courts and all that kind of thing. That
Mhm.
means that there's somehow a progress in matters of giving speech or
Mhm.
speaking what you think in an
Mhm.
environment without being threatened. Do the same thing in Uganda, you will be arrested. Go write anything about criticize something that is criticizing the president in Uganda, you will be arrested. And there are so many examples. If you remember the guy who posted something in TikTok, claiming that the president of Uganda was not doing what we call good governance. He was arrested and he was, charged. So I'm not saying that we have made it, but I'm saying compared to the countries around, somehow Kenya has made some steps. And again, in Africa, there are quite a number of countries that are somehow trying in matters of democracy. Go to South Africa. I'm not saying they're there,
Yeah.
but South Africa has also done, made some steps,
Mhm.
because over there you can see what the opposition leader used to do, the kind of campaign, very rigorous, and the words that he would use. And he would say that, that is their land, they have the freedom to speak so long as they are not fighting each other. Yeah, so that is what I meant. I
Okay,
didn't
now,
really mean that we
all
are
right.
democratically
Thank you.
mature.
And I want to invite Miguda because the reason why I'm asking you this, because we are kind of like picking other parts that we are good at, but there's some other areas that are lagging behind. Because when you look at the democracy means this is a government. If you look at it, when we look at the book definition of a democracy, and the definition, this is a definition of a democracy that we are being taught, and especially we know that the rule of the people, by the people, for the people. And how do you achieve this? You achieve this because the sovereignty belongs to the people. They have the voice. So when a government is being formed, so which means people have to participate. And how do they participate? First of all, they participate through elections. Because there's also, and maybe Miguda will explain to us, because there's a difference between election and democracy. Those are two different things. There's democracy and election. Election is not a democracy, and democracy is not an election. So when we say that, especially for our country, Kenya, we could say that the way you are explaining that we could criticize the president or any other person, but we are not being picked. But when you look at the processes of democracy, because the democracy allows you to express your opinion without interference, because you have that sovereignty. But if we are doing it halfway, does it mean that we've actualized that democracy? Mr. Migode, are you there?
I'm 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 presently here. First, kindly sort out Barak. You can sort out Barak. Barak is communicating somewhere. Kindly sort him out. Either way,
Oh, all right.
I just want to begin by saying, from the definition of Abraham Lincoln, Abraham Lincoln
Mm-hmm.
was one of the president of the United States of America.
Mm-hmm.
He defined democracy as the government of the people, by the people, for the people. The rule by the people, for the people, by of the people, for and by the people.
Mm-hmm.
In short, it is the people who are
Yeah.
governing, or it
So
is
that,
the people who are
mm-hmm.
doing the
Go ahead.
ruling. So, in that definition, in that definition,
Yeah.
it is the people, not the system or not
Mm-hmm.
the structure. And even the quote from Thomas Jefferson, that we all, this truth self-evident, that all human beings are created equal. So in terms of equality, we the people who are accessing this democratic space, what happens is that when we want to establish a government in a democratic manner, because there are many types of government, or there are
Yeah.
many types of ruling, whereby you can decide to be aristocratic, you can decide to be monarchical, you can decide to be democratic, like we, the people of Kenya and other parts of Africa. So when we are doing it democratically, in my view, it should be as per the definition, because there isn't any gap whereby there should be interference for the people. The people should not be interfered with in the entire process, whereby we want to establish a government through democratic process. When we want to establish a government, we are going for an electoral process. And in that election, that's where we participate, that sovereign power. What Makubra was saying, the direct participation,
Mhm.
whereby the people participate directly. You walk into a polling station, you cast your ballot. That one, you have participated directly in that democratic exercise, types of democracy. In that participation is always one of the philosophy of democracy that majority will rule, minority will have their say in whatever circumstances. If you look at the aspects of democracy, the definitions, the types,
Mhm.
all whatever democracy, it should be free, fair, without interference. But what we have in Africa, we are establishing a government, in quote, democratic government, but the people are losing their lives. So when the people have just lost their lives, then you establish a government. You have established a government whereby the people have lost their lives. In that essence of people losing their lives, now it is not democracy. That's according to me. It is never democracy when we have lost lives. But if we have an exercise whereby the people who have exercised their sovereign power
Mhm.
have decided that, okay, the majority have their are ruling with the minority, we have our say, we have been heard. But you find out that the minority in that exercise are being targeted and killed. The minority that exercise are being shot. And even if there could be some avenues to further your your case,
Mhm.
even if you proceed to those places like court, we should not lose lives as we proceed. And even if the court made a determination not in your favor, you should respect the court decision. And even if you are in doubt that maybe Judge A, Judge B, Judge C was maybe compromised,
Mhm.
there are also ways of removing a judge who has been compromised and can face penalty. So democracy requires that it should be all free without losing any life, without interference with anybody. So that's why I told you that Jefferson's quote, that it
Mhm.
is all this truth, that it is self-evident that all human beings are created equal and free in dignity. The fact that we are all equal, that you don't need to interfere with my right, I don't need to interfere with your right. And when we end up with a democratic exercise,
Mhm.
but the results are that the people, the participants are killed, then that is now not democracy in my definition. It's never
So,
democracy. Yeah.
okay, so now let me ask you, and talking about, you've talked about the people who are being killed, or maybe sometimes we find a situation whereby um, the members of opposition, or maybe your competitor, especially for the um, the government in place, they use maybe the justice system to interfere with the rights of their opponents. Because now when even what you say about the democracy that was defined by Jefferson, in a nutshell, democracy is described as a system where power rests with the people, and that one means that they are equal. And the democracy that was in the book that we are reading, there are so many promises that this democracy was giving us. So you said that a promise of equality, which Bakubura talked about, freedom and accountability and prosperity and the rule of law. That is a book text on what the democracy should be. Now, when you bring it to the context of Africa, with what we've been told that it rests with the people, and you look at it, that when we vote, and through that vote is when we elect the government for the people, and that is work to work for the people. And you look at what is happening in the processes of voting to achieve that democracy or to achieve that good governance is not happening. Does it mean that the voting system in Africa actually is making the democracy to lose the meaning and the trust that it should be accorded?
Okay, I now got your second question. The voting system in Africa. Before I respond to your question, just to conclude with my first subject, I want to say that democracy should also be accompanied by basic rights and fundamental freedoms. Because of whatever freedoms and rights we have discussed, they are in the basic rights and fundamental freedoms. So you find out that even the free media, even the political right, the right to participate, the direct participation is just within your right. So it is the people, the people's rights and people's freedom. That's why it must be vested with the people. So it's very crucial to consider the basic rights and fundamental freedoms. When we talk about the issue of electoral system in Africa, now in that context, African, I can say, other than democracy aside, we talk about elections in Africa. There have been electoral frauds, and there have been elections has been rigged in Africa, and there have been a system whereby people do rig elections, and even what we call electoral injustice. That there's an electoral injustice that is now other than democracy. What's happening in this our elections in Africa? There has
Yeah.
been injustice whereby you find out that the people participating, maybe the electoral body, are being compromised to declare a result which does not reflect the popular will of the people. At the same time, the electoral body can be compromised to an extent that even if you have a Supreme Court, like the case of Kenya, if you proceed to the Supreme Court, still the judges can be compromised further. And because of democracy, you will be now coerced, or you'll be compelled to agree with the decision of the court, or to respect, although you can disagree, but you can respect because you are a champion of democracy. So what I want to say that there's a distinction here, actually, the democracy and the electoral system in Africa. So in my final view, I believe that when you talk about democracy, as per me, it should be a all free system whereby there isn't any interference with the people, because these are the people who are, according to Abraham Lincoln, a government of the people, by the people, for the people. Then therefore the people should not fall victims. They should be allowed to do it by themselves. Then we, the majority, we rule. The minority, we have our say. Then when it comes to the electoral system, here is also another animal in Africa, whereby even after observing all the democratic aspects, you find out that the issue that can lead to the killing of this electoral system, this electoral system whereby it is being compromised and does not reflect the popular will of the people. Therefore, if it doesn't reflect the popular will of the people, then the people use their democratic right to protest against the outcome. Then the state comes in and ensure that they interfere with the lives of the people they should be protecting. I think I want to stop it from there. Then we will understand further that even if the state has taken away, we still have some areas we can explore to ensure that we actually try the perpetrators.
Okay, before I invite in Barack, maybe in brief, will you agree with me that the election and democracy are two distinct features? The election is not a democracy, and the democracy is not election.
I agree with you, and that's why I was stressing on the issue of democracy at my first submission. Then I talked about the issue of electoral system and what we have as electoral injustice, and is quite distinct. Electoral injustice. What is causing this? What is messing this democracy? Is this electoral system?
Okay, thank you so much, and I will get back to you. Barak, how are you doing, sir?
Hi, I'm doing well. How are you?
Okay, we are managing here with my brothers, and we are talking about democracy, and we are looking at it in African context because we are looking at what is happening in Africa, especially when it comes to elections and to democracy, because we agree here that on definition that democracy is a system where the power rests with the people. That is what we agree here. And what are those powers that comes with democracy? We are talking about equality, we are talking freedom, accountability, and what we call it this prosperity. Those are those that come with democracy. But when you look at it in Africa, you find that even the equality in Africa is not there. Look about freedom and accountability is not there. When we talk about freedom, the other day, Tanzania just decided to switch off the internet, whereby people were not able to express themselves. You know, and now our question is, with all this, what is happening, especially when it comes to election in Africa, where it is protest and violence, crackdown, assassination, and even what we call kidnaps that sometimes we see in the majority of African nations. Does that one make the democracy, especially to lose its meaning, or to lose the trust of it, especially when you're looking at Africa with what is happening?
Thank you, Ben, for that. Let me say first, start by saying hi to Miguda and Makubura, and also to the viewers in the comment section, Gypsy Corner and Laban Misiani and the rest. Well, I think if you ask me, I think democracy cannot work in Africa to begin with, and Africa was not is not even ripe for democracy up to now. And the reason why I'm saying this, we can trace back the history of democracy. And first of all, we must understand that democracy as a concept is contested because it does not have a universally agreed upon definition. We have several scholars with different definitions, but we converge at the principles of democracy, where you talk about free and fair election, talk about rule of law, talk about freedom of expression, talk about all those other principles that align to democracy. Now, if we trace the history of democracy, realize that democracy started in Athens, and those were during the reigns of city-states in Greek. And if you realize how Athens became a model of democracy, and you realize that in the beginning, democracy were only men. You remember those days we had even slaves who were living in different parts of the world. So only men, and history accounts for about 3,000 men were allowed to make a decision on behalf of the state, which was the Athens city state. That was the genesis of democracy. And not every citizen was allowed to make a decision. And this was argued, it was because it is believed that not every citizen is of sound mind to make a decision. And that is why even scholars who are classical scholars like
Yeah.
Aristotle, like Plato, like Socrates, most of them did not agree with democracy. Because so someone like Socrates argued that democracy is a rule of the unfit, because I argue that the rule of the masses, when we say the government of the people, by the people, for the people, and who are these people that, for example, Abraham Lincoln is talking about? The masses. And according to Socrates, the masses cannot be entrusted by a decision as important as deciding who leads a state. Because according to Aristotle, and according to Socrates, the masses are emotive, the masses are irrational, the masses are illiterate. Therefore, giving them this huge responsibility of deciding who becomes the head of the state, they are not fit to make that decision. And that's why in the history of democracy, not every citizen was allowed to participate in the decisions as important as deciding who becomes the head of state. Now, look at the behavior of politicians in Africa. They are really confirming what Socrates said, that thieves and fraudsters will want important government functions, and democracy will give it to them, because they will manipulate the emotions of the masses, and the masses will vote them in. Yeah, and that is the worst dictatorship than. And Socrates said that will be worse than even having a monarchy or oligarchy system of government, and that is what is happening in Africa. Yeah. And because now we find that we borrowed a concept from the West, and this concept we copy pasted in our system without understanding the implication of the concept. Everybody wants to associate themselves with democracy, and the same democracy is the one that has allowed thieves, fraudsters, rapists, corrupt leaders to ascend to power, because they will claim, I went to an election and I won election. I was voted in by the majority. That is what democracy gives to you. Therefore, the argument of these scholars was that for democracy to be effective, the masses must be literate. They must be well informed for them to ensure that their responsibility of electing the head of state, it is not just something that you just go there with your emotions and you elect anybody. Because once you elect this person, you are giving them the mandate to be in charge of the instruments of violence. Yeah, you are giving them the mandate to be in charge of the instruments of the state machineries are now going to be under their command, are going to be at their disposal. So if you give a fraudster instruments of violence, you give a fraudster state machinery, what do you expect them to do with them? Yeah, are they going to use those instruments in your favor or in their favor? And that is what has been undermining democracy in Africa, because the African population is not ripe for democracy. Because if you look at literacy level in Africa, it's very low. If you look at how African voters make decisions, you will conclude that they are not really, they don't even understand their responsibility. If you look at how African voters make decisions, you'll realize that their decisions are based on emotion, their decisions are based on irrationality, their decisions are based on the fact that they are not driven by consciousness, they are not driven by clarity of their responsibility, and they are not driven by understanding. And that is why, in my opinion, I believe that Africa is not ripe for democracy, and it will take so many years. And let me tell you, let us not lie to ourselves that the West wants democracy to work in Africa. It is not within their interest. And if you want to know that, just observe the behavior of the West towards countries in Africa and towards countries in the Middle East, in the Gulf, towards countries in Asia, towards countries in South America. Let me ask you, if you look at the Kenyan context, let me just use Kenya as a case study in Africa. And you look, for example, Saudi Arabia in Gulf, and you compare the two countries, which country has a higher percentage of human rights violation among the two?
I think it's Saudi Arabia.
You'll realize it's Saudi Arabia. Have you ever heard the United States of America calling Saudi Arabia out because of violating human rights, even once.
Mm-hmm.
Why? Because they treat you according to their interest. Saudi Arabia is very rich in oil. America needs this oil. So what do? You don't care about their records in human rights violation. In fact, the first the first foreign trip for the President Donald Trump was in Saudi Arabia. When he went to Saudi Arabia, then to Qatar, and then he went to United Arab Emirates. So this shows you that relation. Yes, right now they are saying, "Oh, we want to evaluate our relationship with the Tanzania." It is not that because they really care about your track record on human rights violation. They only care about their interest. And if you look at during the Cold War, America was supporting the biggest dictators in Africa. One of them was Mobutu Sese Seko, who was a close ally of the US. Another one was Daniel Moi. Moi was being received as a king in Washington, D.C., and while he had imprisoned political activists here in Kenya, the likes of Raila were languishing in detention. And when he went to the US, he was received as a king, simply because they were allies of the West when it comes to Cold War. But now at the end of Cold War, what happened? It is the same US who led protest in Kenya here through their ambassador Smith Hemshire to advocate for multi-party democracy, and they called Moi as the worst dictator that even Africa has never seen. So that shows you the changing interest of international relations. So I would really want to caution my fellow Africans: don't even imagine in your world that the West are concerned with your interest, that they are pushing about, I don't know, a president because they care about your human rights records. I don't know, they only care about their interest. That is why they will never call out Saudi Arabia. They will never call out these Arab countries because they are producing oil. But when it comes to Africa, they will always be very quick to call you out, because you also like begging. You don't have anything to bargain on.
Yep.
Most countries have oil to bargain on. If you call us out, we'll withhold our oil, and you need this oil. But in Africa, we believe that they are the kings, they are the champions of everything, and therefore we must all just borrow from them. And that's why even Saudi Arabia. When was the last time you had Saudi Arabia having elections?
No, they don't.
Anyway, so that is, let us just to be open-minded about this thing. Let us not tie democracy to that, to the Western ideal way of looking at it. Because even if you follow Julius Nyerere, in the beginning, they have their own way of looking at democracy. And Julius Nyerere was very much into the people, the basic needs of the people. He was arguing that we cannot claim that we are democratic, and yet our people don't even have food to eat. Our people do not even have basic education. They don't have health services. So he was arguing that, can we have what we call an African democracy or African social democracy, where we are focusing more on the needs, the basic needs of the people, so that we don't just focus on the freedom of expression. You cannot express yourself freely if you are hungry. It is not possible.
Yeah.
You can only express yourself freely when your needs are met. But you cannot expect a hungry man on the street to express. If you give them 200, they will change their opinion and then start speaking what you want to hear, because their basic needs are not met. And there is no way someone who is lacking basic needs can really practice the way we know it.
Okay, now maybe just in brief, when you look at this, is what we call constitutional democracy, and this constitutional democracy is whereby we are governed by the constitution, and that are being outlined. And you see, in the majority of African states, you find that do I call them constitutional monarchs that have been in power for over 40 years. Look at what is happening in Cameroon, Paul Biya, in some other West African countries, and you find that even when people vote, you still say that that is democracy, and even some of the international observers will come and tell you it was free and fair. How can it be free and fair when you're creating a constitutional monarch?
That is not a constitutional monarch.
Because
Let
they
me
are
say,
there. Constitution has given them. You vote, and they are
uh,
there forever.
Brother Ben,
Yeah,
you know, there are countries that do not have term limits.
yeah.
You know, term limit is just term that is included in the constitution. But if your country do not have term limit,
Mm-hmm.
then it means that this guy can vie and vie and vie until maybe they die or maybe they are defeated. And that is
Mm-hmm.
what is happening. Like in we are used. Democracy does not mean that you must have two term limits. That is the
Mm-hmm.
problem. Another problem.
Yeah.
Because maybe what we borrowed had two-term limit, then we implement that. We have countries that go for election, but they don't have term limits. Sometimes they for example, like Uganda, when Museveni became the president,
Mm-hmm.
he started by introducing term limits. When he was having his second term, they removed the term limit. Then he came up and he introduced a age limit at 70. When he's approaching 70, they removed the age limit. So, this thing that the constitutions are very unique. Sometimes presidents, they alter the constitution to serve their interest. And
Mm-hmm.
as long as the people are still voting them in, that this is the problem. When you talk about sovereignty, sovereignty means that a country will make decisions on their issues without external interference. So if they believe that not having a term limit works for them, then that is how they practice their democracy or their elections. And Cameroon,
Paul Biya.
Paul Biya is now serving his eighth or ninth term in office. And he has, I think they're going for 7 years in Cameroon, if I'm not wrong. Is it 5, 7 or 4?
Mm.
I think it's 7. So he's supposed to rule up to 1932. No, 2032. Now he is 92 right now. So by then, it's expected that he will be 90. If maybe God gives him life up to there, he will be 99. So you know, and such things, I will not call them undemocratic because he went to election and people voted for him. Whether he rigged the election or that happened, it's upon the Cameroon to know. But now,
But Barak,
yeah,
maybe if you're not questioning it, but what also you have to understand that if you are saying that democracy is the will of the people, yeah, and without term limits, but why are we experiencing a situation whereby we get the protests? People are protesting. Why are the people protesting then?
people have been protesting even in Kenya with only one term. Protest is not a measure of democracy.
Mm,
Let us be clear here. In
mm,
Kenya, how many elections have been protesting? And we've never had a president who has gone for more than 2 terms since the introduction of multi-party. So
mm.
people can protest
Yeah.
based on, winning election is also a perception.
Mm,
If a candidate has managed to come up with a perception that
mm,
this election, if we're not winning, then that this election is rigged, and you up the stakes for your supporters. What will you expect if you're not declared the winner? In Africa, we have that tendency, and even during Trump's time in the US, it also happened
yeah.
that candidates who are going for election, they come up with a perception, and then their supporters buy this perception that this election is going to be rigged if we don't win. Yeah. And they are going to come up with a narrative that, and the supporters will buy. And immediately after elections are declared, the results are declared, you'll find people demonstrating. It does not really mean that election was rigged. It just means that the perception of around the rigging of election was really bought by the supporters, and they are ready to accept nothing apart from their candidate winning. And if their candidate has not won, then the election has been rigged, and they will
Okay.
cause chaos for one or few days or a few weeks until the situation comes back to normality. It has
Mm,
happened in Kenya. It has happened even in Nigeria. It has happened even in Cameroon, even in Senegal. So
mm,
these are tactics that politicians use to ensure that it's either we've won or we have been rigged out.
mm.
Yeah.
All right. Let me bring to you Makubura. Maybe Makubura. If the government that has been elected by the people for the people and uh, uh, he's not delivering the services that they're supposed to deliver, Can we say that that is a democratic government, or that is a not democratic?
A government that provides, a government that listens, a government that consults. Remember, democracy defines it as it defines it as a government of the people and for the people. And that clearly says that whatever decisions the leaders are making, it has to be a decision that is of good interest to the people that are being governed. It has to be a decision that is positively impacting the lives of the citizens. It has to be a decision that is that is being made with good intentions. It should not be a decision that is making the lives of the citizens unbearable. That is what democracy talks about. If a leadership or a government cannot solve the problems of the people, then that means that they are not listening, and therefore the government is not for the people. And it omits that bit of governments. It omits that bit of the relationship between the citizens and the government. And that is what I wanted to say, that a democratic government has to be one that is solving the problems and the issues of the people of Kenya.
Okay, so if this the government solves the issues of Kenya and listens, then we might say that that is a democratic government. Let's say
Yes,
in any
yes,
other African state.
yes. That
Okay,
is
thank you so much. Me good, are you there?
Yeah, I'm
All
here.
right. All right. Thank you. Thank you so much. And maybe if also you to give us your view. So with all this that is happening, especially when we talk about election and we see all these protests that are happening, and these are all geared toward seeing that we achieve our democratic space and achieve an environment that is so much democratic. How can we, for instance, bring trust to the democracy, even though people define it quite much differently? What can we do as an African state so that we see the trust when we go to election, we do what is right, and that trust is bestowed on democracy, so that we can proudly say that the government in place is democratically elected, and even elected through honest political processes or through honest voting processes.
My worry was only that people are being killed. That was my worry, that after every elections, people must die. And let me tell you, the so-called democracy we are trying to discuss here, even we haven't find out that this now the uniform definition of democracy. We have a variety of definition from the different scholars. Even in the United States of America,
Yeah.
you find out that it is not always perfect. Rigging do happen, and there have been accusations whereby it's maybe Russians assisted Democrats, sometimes Russians assisted Republican, and then things have been moving on even after elections. So what we need to understand as Africans before we look at how can we get it right without interfering in the democratic space is that even where we borrowed it, where we get it from, are they fighting? Are they killing civilians? That's where my point is, because you don't need to kill someone for you to establish a government, because I believe that even in the US there have been accusations that the Democrats have rigged elections sometimes, or even Trump said that Joe rigged him, and I even wrote down that Joe won elections. To me, I can say in the African context, first, we have to agree that as African people, we have a way of doing things. And before the colonial era, if you read our history very well, community used to live in harmony and peace. And when you say, how comes you can curb the issue of people protesting against the result? If we have two factors, and I've persuaded my constituents that I'm going to win elections, and if I'm not declared, maybe I've lose those elections fairly, or I've been rigged, people will still protest. African culture, African state of mind, there will be still protest that our person has not been declared, even in a contest in a contest whereby you have been beaten fairly. Some will still protest. And a government of the people, by the people, for the people. When we said we the people, we are sovereign, and we are exercising our constitutional right, maybe to protest. What about the people who are not protesting? They can also say, we the people, we put this government. For instance, the Uhuru Ruto regime 2013, when the court affiliates, court can decide that we are protesting that we won these elections. The entire court, political base, whereas the Jubilee will say, okay, we are also protecting the victory that we won. So up to that extent, I want to say that it is not clear that we must get it. How can you get it right in a democratic space that if we do this or do the other way around, we can get it very clear that now so and so has won election, so and so has lost elections, and the process has not been compromised, and it has been declared, it has been sworn in, and things move on swiftly. It can't work out that way because most of the time we have very competitive elections in the African. And if you look what happened in Tanzania, when Sumia Suluhu won 31 million, I don't 32 million, and 97% of the total votes cast.
Miguda, are you there? Okay, thank you so much. I think Miguda has dropped. He's having a problem with the internet. Allow me to take this opportunity.
Rwanda.
Yes, Miguda. Miguda, are you there? Okay. Allow me to take this opportunity to acknowledge the presence of Godia, Laban Misiani, Brenda, Eric Ayaga, and everyone is watching us. Thank you so much for finding time to be with us this evening. We really, really appreciate Allow me to also say a big thank you to Philip, Manasseh, Felix Okelo, Buka, Gilvian. Thank you so much.
Makobura, let me
So,
conclude. Kindly.
you are breaking. Kindly proceed then.
Okay, sorry for that. I have a view, personal view. As me as still, I want to just to stick to my point that if we can lose the people because of the exercise like democracy, electoral process, if it was intended that we have to lose the people in Africa, and even those people are rigging it, but they not lose the people. If it was that was the intention, then we don't need it, because even during the colonial era, we lost people when we were fighting for independence as Africans, the political independence, where people were fighting across the Africa, in Accra, Ghana, Nigeria, Tanzania, Kenya, South Africa. People lost their lives, and even if you go to those countries, you can find even some have even preserved museums whereby you can find that these people were killed during colonial era, whereby they were protesting and fighting for the independence of their country, and we lost massive lives of the African. And finally, we were all declared, African states were declared independent. Right now, we are operating under democratic space, but each and every elections, most of African countries, people have to protest, people have to lose their lives. Why? Why were we borrowing things that we end up, we continue the continuation of people dying in any political contest, whereby if even it was a political independence, people died. If in a political competition, people die. Why? That's the question that I'm likely looking to address. And the colonial era, whereby people were killed, up to now, these people, have they got any access to justice? The people who died at those times now, and even the people who were killed previously, and the people who are continuing to die, how are they getting justice? So can we continue this system of democracy and we keep on losing lives? And then even if you look at the people's lives across the African states, we keep on losing people because of this thing called democracy. And so in my view, were we not having some setup of governance before all these importations? Were we not having some form of, maybe you can talk of the hereditary structure? Because if I'm not wrong, my panelist Barak has talked about Saudi Arabia. I believe there is it is more of an hereditary, or more of a kingdom of state. I'm yet to find out. So if as Africans, if you could have just have our own identity, whereby we understand better rather than rushing, because all these rushes, the people's lives, that's my end of argument. People's lives have been lost here. And if you could have our own structure, maybe our own identity as Africans, maybe talked about even if we are a constitutional democratic state, what about incorporation of chieftaincy, or incorporation of, maybe like the case of Uganda, the Baganda kingdom being incorporated into the so-called constitution, where there's some culture, there's some customs or cultural structured into the system of governance, other than purely using the Western importation into our governing structure. And even if you go to Accra, Ghana, you find out that the issue of chieftaincy. I don't know whether it was Ashanti kingdom or whatever the kingdom, being incorporated into their constitution, rather than just trying to do away with our own understanding, our own identity, what we can do better. Then we work with the foreign structure. And even at the conception of this foreign structure, there is the constant thing is people losing lives. So why not for this democracy? Tanzanians could have, of course, they could have still have their president without people dying. So after this exercise, people are dying into this exercise because of the structure at the conception, because it is consistent that even when we go to our election in 2007, and in case of anything, people can still protest and people can still lead to violence. And in terms of violence, lives are likely to be lost and properties are likely to be destroyed, and also some are being stolen. Up to this juncture, as Africans, what have we learned, and what can we get rid of, and what can work, so that we focus on the lives of Africans that we need to live without losing lives. And also, if you can do away with the elections, even we have a benevolent dictator, but life must continue. The issue of why must we continue the democracy and the people dying? Which people do you want to rule? Other than people dying, other basic structures, other basic needs. Can we maintain our basic needs and we maintain our lives as Africans, that we don't die because of political independence, and lose our basic needs, and we continue that?
Okay, thank you so much, Miguda. And good is saying, Barack, in Africa, we don't care how one becomes a president. We are used to the system. We protest, demonstrate, then we move on. Okay, thank you so much. Maybe before we leave, want you, Barack and Miguda, to give your general take on the politics of opposition, where Gachagua is now claiming or moving like he's gonna support Kalonzo and Matiang'i for 2027. This is the second time that he's appearing to be shelving his presidential ambition, and I remember he was speaking about unity, that if they are not united, they are not going anywhere. So my question to you is this a tactical retreat or a strategical masterstroke by Gachagua? You'll give your take on that. And then the president went to Qatar. Ruto's Qatar deal. Is it a strategic diplomacy, or what is it that is going on? Of course, we saw the president meeting Qatar's Emir Sheikh Tahim bin Hamad Al Thani in Doha, and they agreed to deepen the investment ties in agriculture, infrastructure, finance, including support for Kenya's mega dam program. And the question that I would want you to give your take is Ruto positioning Kenya as the regional investment hub? And then the last question, the second last that you'd also give your take, is the Mount Kenya leadership rift. Kenya Kwanza leaders slammed Gachagua for claiming there is a leadership vacuum in the Mount Kenya. And you remember Gachagua was saying, he was pleading with the people to allow him become the kingpin. And we saw the National Assembly Majority Leader, Kimani Ichung'wah, accusing him of bitterness and, of course, divisiveness. my question is, who truly speaks for Mount Kenya, and what does this mean for 2027? You'll give your take on that, and then my last question would be the upcoming by-elections, which are scheduled on 24th across the country. The contest, of course, will involve camps aligning with the president, that is Ruto, stroke Raila camp, and Gashagua's camp, setting the stage for a mini showdown. Will these by elections preview the 2027 political battle? You can give us your take on that, and then after that, you'll give us your final remarks, Mr. Barak.
Thank you for that. I agree with the Gypsy Corner's comment that in Africa we don't care how one becomes the president, and because once someone becomes a president, you just protest in few days and then life continues normal. Anyway, to your question, I think you know that Gachagua was impeached, so he's not eligible to vie for any political seat. He's not allowed to hold any public office. Therefore, he was holding on to hopes that maybe court will quash his impeachment, will revoke his impeachment. But I think he's coming up to the reality that that is not going to happen. So he was just positioning himself to support another person because he's not eligible for any election. In terms of who speaks for Mount Kenya, I think time will tell because they have several people who are still jostling themselves for the kingship of the kingpins of Mount Kenya. So after 2027 election, maybe that will be settled, and a leader will emerge who will be speaking on behalf of the Mount Kenya region. Therefore, I think the other question was about by-election. I think by-election is very important for whoever will win. It's on 27th, 27th this month, not 24th. So this by-election is going to be, especially depending with the seat. For example, in Malava, it's very important for UDA because that was their member of parliament. And if they loses to the United Opposition, that is going to be a setback for them. But you cannot really certainly affirm that that is going to determine the direction of 2027 election. Because remember, we are still, I think, about 2 years away from the next election. Let me say about 1 year and 10 months. So that's a very long time in Kenyan politics. So you cannot say with clarity that the by-election will dictate or will inform 100% the direction of 2027 elections. And you remember that the constituencies that we are going to have by elections, every constituency have those people who are believed to be the dominant party. For example, Ugunja and Kapisipul and Magarini, especially Ugunja and Kasipul is a place that ODM is going to win. And if they don't win that, then I think that is going to cause a lot of panic within the party. Magarini also is a very interesting election to observe. And I think the ODM, if they are not really careful, that might really slip away from them because it seems that they are not really put the house in order. And the power wrangles between ODM can really cost them, and not only Magarini, but even in Ugunja, not Ugunja, Kasipul. Because, sometimes when you are busy fighting amongst yourself, the enemy will take advantage of that and they will run away with whatever you're fighting for. And that is what even happened in Meru when Kiraitu Murungu was busy fighting with Mithika Linturi. Kawira Mwangaza ran away with the seat that they were fighting for. And when elections were declared, they were also shocked that they lost to her. So that is what normally happens. So if ODMs want to get their seats, They have to ensure that they focus and they stop this infighting among themselves, because everybody understands each role they are playing within the party. So it's very important that they stay focused. Otherwise, hata Oteti ataenda na hiyo kiti ya Kasipul. And in terms of Malava, UDA is very important for them to win. And if they lose to to the DAPK, then that will be a plus to the united opposition. Same with Mbeere. Is it north or south? I think Mbeere north. And in Mbeere north, the member of parliament who was there is now cabinet secretary. And the DP also comes from Mount Kenya East. So it's very important for them to win. And I've not seen the campaigns there in that side being really captured in the media as the way they are focusing on Malava and Kasipul. So these elections are very important for the party that believes that this was our seat to retain their seats. But if they do not, it's going to be a lesson to them so that they can start preparing early enough. But I cannot affirm that is going to show the direction of 2027. We've seen people losing by election, and when they go to the general election, they win. We've seen other winning by election, but when they go to the general election, they lose. So whoever will win should not really be too much, should not really have too much confidence that now they are going to win 2027 election, because there's so much to be decided along the way. Even Baringo, Baringo is now in Kalenjin, so people are really not focusing there. But they should remember that Gideon Moy was President Ruto reached out to Gideon Moy to step out of that race, because they wanted to have an almost clear win from there, because they didn't want to engage into campaigning in Baringo so much. So I don't know if the people were satisfied with that decision and they're going to vote in UDA. I think by 2017 we'll know. But by elections, normally you can build you can build from the experience of by election and strategize, use it as a lesson as you prepare to 2027. Either by losing or even by winning, you can still to use that to sharpen your strategy as you move to 2027 election. And let me see. Gladys Wanga should stop exercising power by telling the Caribbean candidates to use. I think I don't know whether it was her who said or it was just that candidate, but it was not a good move. That's a very wrong move, because she's not the face of the party. The face of ODM, as people know, is Raila Odinga, and that face has not been replaced yet. So I think that was a very wrong move. And sometimes this desperation we are saying here yesterday, this desperation can even cost these leaders that we have right now, because when you are so desperate and you want to prove something, sometimes in that desperation you make some decisions that can be counterproductive and can even hurt your own political ambitions. Therefore, I think that was a very wrong move, and if she's not cautioned, if she has people who are around her who can caution her and she listen, I think she will hurt herself in her desperation to be, because ODM's face is Raila Odinga, and still that face is going to be the face of ODM for some time before we get another replacement that people will now be comfortable with associating. But just coming up and putting your face in a post, I think that was not meant, was not in good faith, and has really worked against her. So she should go slow. I think anaenda mbio sana, and sometimes kwenda mbio sana you can end up injuring yourself. Finally, I'm so happy to have joined, even though I was experiencing some difficulties in the beginning. But finally, I managed to join, and it was nice having discussion with you guys. And also, from the comment section, we are so grateful that you managed to join Gypsy Corner, Laban Misiani, and the rest. So keep up the support, keep up the good work, and until next time, stay blessed and stay safe. Bye bye.
Thank you, Mr. Barak. Miguda, what is your take on the questions that are asked about the upcoming by-elections? Will these by-elections preview the 2027 political battle And the issue of Gachagua backing Kalonzo and Matiang'i. Is this a tactical retreat that is making, or a strategic masterstroke by Gachagua? Can give us your take on that, and the president visit to Qatar. Is Ruto positioning Kenya as a regional investment hub? You'll give your take on that. And the Mount Kenya leadership rift between Gachagua and the Kenya Kwanza leaders. Who truly speaks for Mount Kenya, and what does this mean for 2027, Mr. Miguda? Afterwards, you'll give your last remarks.
Neither nor tactical masterstroke, because from the word go, Gachagua was not eligible to contest for the presidency. He remains impeached. I have an issue with that. I saw it. They said Kalonzo Musyoka president, Natembeya deputy president, Eugene speaker, Martha Karua speaker, those bicameral houses, and also Gachagua to have 50% deal of the government. Yeah, I have no issue with the structure. But why do you give somebody 50% of the government? And you understand Gachagua has been pro Mount Kenya. If he takes those 50 Mount Kenya, what about the rest of the country? So I don't know. It was a misinformation or whatever. But they should also relook at it. Matiang'i prime cabinet unconstitutional. So I think they should, whenever they make the decision, let them try to reconcile the entire Kenya. Because look at that formation. Where's Rift Valley? Rift Valley is a factor. Where's Coast? Coast is a factor in this country. Where are the Somalis? No, the Somalis are left out. The people from Coastal are left out. The Rift Valley are left out. The Maasai are left out. What about my good people from Luonya? Let us, if you want to establish a government, let us have all-inclusive government. But this issue of trying to segregate other people that the cousins, so it's a cousin affair. Even if it's a cousin affair, they should include even other people. So let them have even plain Nilots. If they don't want Highland Nilots and River Lake Nilots, let them have plain Nilots. We have plain Nilots. The Maasai, the James, the Turkana, the Teso, even they go to Teso. So anyway, I believe it was an misinformation, but that's not what I don't think that's what people like Gachagua can sit down and discuss. That Gachagua will have 50% of the government. Then we'll give Kalonzo presidency. Then we give Natembeya deputy president. Then we give Matiang'i prime cabinet. Then Martha Karua speaker of the National Assembly. Then Eugene speaker of the National Assembly. Really? My good people, even in the government of Kasongo, we saw Kingi from Coast in the Senate. We saw Wetangula from Western Bukusu. We saw Kindiki from Mount Kenya, deputy president. Then Ruto from Rift Valley. And even Prime Cabinet was coming from Western. And even in the Kasongo government, which we are saying one time, the unstable government try to look at the Kenyan at large. Don't try to put it like it is. It must reflect only even if they are the people who are hurt most by this government. Let them not try to, because how are you going to convince the Maasai that you want their votes? So I think they should restructure that. Even if they're supporting Kalonzo, there's no problem, but they should reconsider. Why do you want to put it like it's only a Bantu affair? Let us try to make it like it's a Kenyan affair. Even Somalis are Kenyans; those are here in the country. So And that's not a surprise to me because it was likely that Gachagua was not going to contest because you understand he was impeached. And we have advised Gachagua very clearly that let them bring a formation, let them bring that a formidable plan that can actually work for everybody. And if that's their plan, then it works for them well and good. But if it doesn't work for people, also well and good. We said if you can have a formation whereby we have a president, a deputy president, who can ensure that it will become one term, a pro-people candidate. But this issue of even without pro-people candidate, 50% of the government, the Gachagua, really Kenyans are also seeing. They will make it very worse in the future. We just my advice to the people who are trying to advise Gachagua, let them try to manage. It will be as worse. People will argue that okay, if he has decided to take 50% of the government, and remember Gashagua's previous utterances, people will be like, really insecure. Does it mean that this 50% is going to Mount Kenya? So you understand? Because it can't go to one region. You need to, even if 50 go to other part of if we have 50% to other parts of the Kenyans, then the 50% to Mount Kenya, really, I think we are past that politics. We are beyond that politics. We should do good politics. I don't want to discuss about Mount Kenya spokesperson because I'm not well conversant with that terrain. The terrain, because there are people who can speak. There are better people who understand the terrain. People like I saw Wambugu. What's it? Wanjiru. I don't know Wambugu. There are so many Mount Kenya politicians that understand the terrain very well, and they can, with time, they will give us who is the spokesperson, who befits, who can speak for the community, or who is the popular person from the region. You talked about the issue of by-election. The issue of Qatar, I haven't interacted with that news, so I'll give my opinion. The issue of by-elections. I just want to state one thing very categoric. Gladys Wanga, the issue of ODM. Gladys Wanga is spoiling things here, and we are also receiving intels where we are. Where we are right now. Makubra, where I am right now. We are receiving a very credible intels, very reliable. The reason why Baba insisted that do not commit the party to say to term. Do not commit the party that William Ruto will be supported by ODM. Baba said publicly, if you never heard him, then relax, don't bring chaos here. Baba said, do not commit the party. Baba also said, who told you that the party will support William Ruto 27? The reason was, we are now getting the sense right now. And that's why Oburu Kingas insisted, the only spokesperson for the party is Edwin Sifuna. There are some suspects in the ODM, people like Wanga. They were already doing night meetings, insisting that we are going to give you ODM. Who told you? So we are here we will point them out as we are going forward. So Wanga should stop her madness. I saw her running to Magarini because she heard that the party was taking off and Ruth Odinga was almost being endorsed as the party chairperson. And we are going to do that. If we don't want someone who is committing the party for our own self-interest. If they have an affair, let them continue the affair, but don't engage don't use at the expense of the people of the party to advance your own selfish interest. You are just an individual. There's no way you can advance your self-interest for the entire population. You get the sense. There are people who have invested that part and people are serious about it. So if you have been promised something, pursue it rightfully. don't use people's influence to pursue what you have been promised. And you know, there are many people have been promised deputy president position, not only you. So you should be very careful. Because if I'm in Western, I'm promising Musalia Mudavadi. If I'm in Central, I'm promising Kindiki. If I'm in Luanyanza, I'm promising Wanga. I'm promising Badi. If I go to Coast, I'm promising Joho. If I go to West, you understand the game? Because previously also, many people were promised. Kika was promised also in Nakuru. This is politics, my friend. So relax. And I want to give Edwin Sifuna a thumbs up and Oburu Ginga. Do not commit the party. Let the party walk its way. When it comes 2027, they will sit down and decide on what to do, which one will work for them. And the people who are in the government, let them speak for the route to administration, not the party. The party must remain united. The party must retain its identity and values. And that's why I told you that she was almost being kicked out and being replaced by Ruth Odinga as the party chairperson, even if it's a family affair. So be it, because one individual cannot, each and every time she's making errors. She continue making errors. Even right now, we are mourning Raila. She's having a rally on Thursday. She want to mourn Raila in Omabe. So you understand those. There are things that some people think that they can get away with it. People are no longer fools. So that's what I want to talk about, the issue of ODM. ODM should focus on winning Kasipul Kabondo. ODM should focus on winning Magarini. ODM should focus on winning Ugunja. Very much important for them. UDA should focus on winning Malava, and the united opposition, by all means, they should win Bere to send a signal to William Ruto that you are no longer a boss here in Mount Kenya. We are the Mount Kenya boys. You are an outsider, foreigner. The way I told you, William Ruto is a cunning politician. He wanted to take away ODM, and that's what Baba saw. That's what Sifuna has been retaining. So we have refused. ODM is not going anywhere. If you must work with ODM, it must be under structured that it's an ODM, a coalition agreement, not that you swallow the party. If you want to swallow the party, swallow individuals. You can swallow Wanga, but you can replace Wanga with Ruth. There are many people.
Okay, you can give us your last remark. You good? Okay. Thank you so much for finding time, Iguda, to join us. Allow me to say a big thank you to a good friend, Gypsy Corner. Oh, good year. Oh, today it's good year. Thank you so much. I want to say a big thank you to Brother Benson for also finding time to join Brother Barak and Miguda. I think Miguda is having a problem with his internet. I'm also having a problem over here with power. So apparently today there's no power, and it's been a struggle here and there. But all in all, I appreciate everyone who joined. I want to take this opportunity to just now wish you all a blessed night, a blessed evening, a blessed afternoon, a blessed morning, a blessed evening from wherever you're watching us from. Thank you so much. And may God bless you. Mungu awaonekanie.